Well, hello and welcome back to Tech Live. Today I'm really excited to welcome Nic onto the show. Hi Nic, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Kat?
I'm good, thank you. How's your week been so far?
Busy. Even though
Yeah.
it's only a 4-day week with, the start of the summer term. I think
Cool.
lots going on the political landscape, lots of conferences coming up for the summer. Good busy though, good busy.
Yeah, all good stuff. Just, a lot, especially as I know you tried to take at least a little bit of a break over Easter, but I know you ended up working. So that does mean there was probably even more to come back to. Bless you. So could you please start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what the Global Equality Collective is as well?
Yeah, no worries at all. So I'm Nic Ponsford. So I'm the founder and CEO of the GEC, the Global Equality Collective. I'm also a doctoral researcher, and then I still do a little bit of freelance.
That's exciting. You'll be able to call yourself doctor at some point soon then.
I know. Well, I've just submitted my thesis, which is very exciting. 80,000 words I've done. And then big project. Really, the doctorate is where, that kind of inspiration for the GEC occurred. So the GEC is two parts. So the first part is the GEC Circle. So we've got the world's largest collection of EDI experts in education. We're over 400 strong, the most incredible individuals and organisations out there who are supporting inclusion and wellbeing in the sector. And then the other side is the GEC Platform. So the GEC Platform is a report and support platform which helps schools identify and close their inclusion gaps. And really that came out of my doctoral research, trying to find a way of looking at a way of understanding the hidden voices in education. And then built it, launched it, and the kind of like working out where we go from here with it as well. But yeah, it's been a really, really exciting sort of 5 years from, getting that initial investment to where we are today.
It's weird to think of it as 5 years because it doesn't feel like that long ago that we were at that bet in 2020 and I met you there and it all kind of just started. So it's strange when you say 5 years.
Yeah, and I think because I've just submitted a thesis, I feel like it's a real chapter. And I think, 2020, although I'd create through what was then Twitter, created the GEC as like an online community. It was in 2020, just literally like within days of, getting the funding to build a platform and then being headhunted to do the DFE edtech demonstrator program and the 3 kids coming home, from going from that to, creating it, evolving the platform. And now I'm at a really exciting point where the surveys created for staff and students, we've now surveyed over 26,000 students and schools.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's quite a lot. Yeah, it's a lot for a doctorate. So now what I'm doing is looking at all of that data and using AI and trying to understand how we use data for inclusion in education. So yeah, apparently I'm a data scientist now, which
it's exciting. Add that string to there.
I know. So it's quite a nice point actually to kind of pinpoint and look back, at the road of where it kind of all started from, but also, like what the next chapter of the GEC is going to be as we kind of move into more like a research model as well, which is super exciting.
That's really exciting. Yeah, sounds like a really exciting moment then. And then could you tell us a little bit about who you are outside of work as well?
There's not much of that.
Well, it's more just, I think it's nice as part of this, especially like when we're kind of looking at like the stereotypes of sort of people that work in tech and roles and stuff. I just always think it's nice to kind of just get to know people a little bit of who they are to show that anyone can work in tech.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Kat, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So,
don't say it like that.
I'm Nic and I live down in Dorset on the south coast, about as south as you can get. And I've got 3 kids. I've got twins that are in primary school and I've got an older in secondary school. And I suppose outside of this, I was a media teacher. So you know, film, TV and music have always been, you know, my really, you know, my sweet spots. And, you know, I'm most happiest when I'm at a gig, listen to some music, normally like a band from the 90s.
Nice.
Yeah, I like to relax by, you know, going for walks down by the beach, meeting up with friends, reading and chilling out in between being obsessed in front of a screen.
Love that. Yeah, why not? And yeah, why not a 90s band too? It sounds good. But I'm sure being a mum keeps you busy as well, on top of being a founder and a CEO and everything else. There's a lot that you got there. So you know.
Yeah, it does. And it's weird because like I started, I mean, my I suppose my career started in advertising, PR and marketing. I always wanted to be a teacher. And then I became a teacher. And as I was, you know, doing that interview to be an English teacher, I said, "Oh, do you do media?" And I ended up as an NQT, so that's like first year teaching, set up a media department. And that is kind of, I suppose, that kind of love of digital art and the creative arts is where I kind of came in. You know, I was teaching BTECs, I was teaching kind of web design, you know, films, TVs, using CGI, all that kind of stuff with the kids, and advertising and branding, and you know, all of that kind of the visual side, very much of using tech, not a science background at all. And that kind of then led to, when I wasn't teaching, I won a teaching award back like really early on, and I was asked to do training. I was to do training and write, and I'd always written. I'd always, you know, like since I was at school, I was asked to do like the poster for the school play, or you know, and kind of for university, I was, you know, I even, I don't know if you probably remember from teaching days, but overhead projectors back in the day. Yeah, I used to do little cartoons for a lady who lived next door to me, who was a businesswoman. And so I've always liked that kind of creative side. And so when I came into teaching, I did a lot of, you know, content, like you do your lesson planning and, you know, that kind of thing. And I think kind of the way that then ended up trying to look for a solution in education and how we can use technology, that content creation side was really important to me, like to train, to engage others, and I've kind of continued that. So it's been quite nice recently, after having you know, stopped writing the thesis, to have a chance to write other things and create more content, as we were talking about started. But yeah, that's still kind of a place I like to be with my tech, is, you know, using some of the great software that's out there to, you know, take what's in here and put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that you've got that creative outlet within it as well. I think that works really well together. That creativity and tech kind of can interweave really nicely.
Yeah, and I kind of think like you know, traditionally, when you think about computers and technology in schools, and a lot of the career routes that people kind of come from, you know, like I remember at university they had a computer room, and you know, back in like 95, whatever it was, and that was, you know, that was a massive deal. And you know, we didn't, like PCs, like I remember when I was little, but you know, like we had, you know, Frogger, and you know, like it was gaming, it wasn't really for anything else. And kind of coming through that, I, you know, because I always drew, that's how I've kind of got into technology. And I see now where things have changed in education, and where I was teaching media studies and media literacy. I think what's been really interesting has been kind of the divide from about 2010, when Go came in, kind of lack of multimedia and media literacy. And, you know, by calling the subject computer science and the focus on coding, actually a lot of people feel that they aren't in tech, but actually the digital arts and the creative industry in the UK is booming. And it's an area that actually we should be driving more people to, from any background. And yet it's still not quite there. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see things like Ofcom have been looking at media literacy and how that can get back into teacher training. We've obviously had the online safety bill coming in. So I think there's starting to be a little bit more of an understanding around how tech has got like a wider umbrella.
We're seeing that shift, aren't we?
Yeah, then like just, like product design and computer programming,
Yeah, definitely. What's your experience been like of becoming a founder? What inspired that initial journey, and how's it gone, like the good and bad?
It's definitely, well, I never set up a business before, and I think I kind of fell into it accidentally. I'm quite good at saying yes, as you can probably with my backstory. And
I mean, you say in your first year of training, you set up a media department. So that kind of gave me a hint into what you're like in general.
And I think like, so my background, safe school was my safe place. And so I've always been keen in looking at what opportunities are instead of challenges. I'm quite a sunny person. And so, I started to do the doctorate after I'd been a teacher, and I'd worked for an educational charity, and, starting to look at what the landscape was and what we needed. And I had a very clear idea of what it was. I'd worked for an educational charity for 9 years and seen a whole organizational coaching based framework used. I'd created training content for them after I'd written for educational press and written a book as well. So I knew that I could use technology to help train others and also to learn things myself. And so the doctorate was really about kind of looking at the landscape and seeing what could do and what might be made possible. And normally what you do in research then is you would use someone else's, you would create your own surveys or your own quizzes. And actually sort of the more I talked about this kind of idea of what we needed in education, and we needed, the lived experience and the expertise, but I didn't want to just be a grassroots community. I wanted to have like a really practical thing for school leaders, because I knew that's where change comes in the system. And so it was kind of quite accidental that I fell into being a founder. And I think like I am a big believer in we, not I. So, I very much, though I am the founder, I do also see that I've always had a team around me of different people at different stages, and that collaboration or that kind of collective has always been really important to me. And I think what's interesting now, looking at the founder status, like essentially you've set up a business, like you've set up a small medium business. 13% of CEOs in edtech, the founders are female. So and when you start to look at intersectional identities, those numbers decline from there. I have had real issues looking at funding in the past. So for example, what I saw originally were a lot of women or female founder based initiatives, but I couldn't go to them. I don't live in London. I have childcare to think about, and a day out of me doing the day-to-day job and bringing sales and stuff in was something I couldn't really afford. And so even in the early days winning accelerators, I couldn't access that because I didn't have the resources to go.
There's like regional divides as well then, where it wasn't
huge,
available locally at all.
Very kind of London and city focused. And you throw in having to do the school run twice a day. And, I've worked remotely since 2010.
It allows the flexibility, doesn't it?
And also, I mean, we've seen with recent sort of funding pots for women, there was the Innovate grant, and I was kind of part of that community where 50 females were going to be told that they got the money, and actually they didn't give it to 50. And I
remember seeing the petition for that.
We came together. We came together via LinkedIn and WhatsApp, actually, kind of rallied and said, this isn't right. And they did pivot, and they did award 50 females in the end. There had to be a little bit of a shakedown for it. And I think that can be one of the issues that we do have still within the founder space, that there aren't enough sort of untapped pots. A lot of it now, particularly you know, when we think about what it was like 5 years ago to now, the old school kind of roots seem to be coming back in with networking opportunities, face-to-face events. And that makes it very difficult, I think, for people that don't have the privilege to do that, let's put it that way. And so that is a little bit of an issue. And so, you know, I was supported initially through a private investment, and then did a crowd fund, which was brutal. I'm now in another fundraise at the moment. And I think being a fan, you end up wearing all the hats. But there, you know, you can have the pressure of trying to do sales and do the pitch, but you're creating like the content, and then you're dealing with someone else, and then the legal thing in, or so you have to have a support network around you in terms of like the company and the business sense. But it can be quite hard, I think, if your friendship group don't understand where you're at, and it can be good then to look at networks that can support. I mean, I find I don't have a lot of time. Of course. And there are communities, if you've got a lot of time and you want to, you know, you really need that. I don't tend to use them as much. I tend to want to do like you know, like a drive-through version of getting advice and cheerleading. And I think the thing that probably has surprised me the most is how many sharp elbows there can be out there. There's very few female founders that I've found that actually will collaborate and authentically support.
Do you think that's because of the difficulties around like getting things like funding and things like that? Do you think it creates a like almost like an unhealthy competitiveness maybe?
Yeah, and I've seen Vanessa recently talk about things like the queen bee syndrome. There really can be that, and I think there's almost, I suppose, you know, women are very communicative and literate in the main, and we're used to using our words. And there is, you know, I think if you look in sort of matriarchal systems, it's really in the animal sphere to see how that kind of works, and species that kind of get ahead, it's that kind of collaboration and working together. And I think sometimes you can kind of feel that someone would behave in the same way you would, but that isn't always the case. And because there's such a small pool, I think essentially what you're trying to do is, as an entrepreneur or as a founder, is, you know, you want stability for your company, for your organization as well. And I think that can be quite difficult when you know, when you can sometimes feel like everyone's kind of against you and you're trying to kind of keep above water. I mean, most startups kind of, you know, there's a trajectory you can see that they, you know, go under after, you know, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years. It's normally like, you know, the bandwidth that you kind of get. And so, you know, that it is a difficult space of trying to keep your IP and trying to keep your ideas and trying to, you know, make the noise. And that's one of the things I do really like about the GC, and having, like, you know, the GC circle, which you're part of as well. There's a real authentic wish to kind of network and share ideas and, you know, learn from one another in a way that shows, you know, it's a really big pie out there, and we can, you know, it's actually helpful. And that synergy piece, like if you don't have a big marketing team, it's much easier, you know, to someone else to double the audience. And so I, as I say, I like to kind of try and move things around a bit. And I think someone told me the other day that I'm a bit too trusting, and I think sometimes I feel like I'm a bit slapped in the face sometimes, but that's the world of business, and, you know, and you know, that kind of networking thing. But that I suppose that's the kind of surprise with it. But it's, you know, it's hard work, I think. And if you are thinking of founding a company, or you know, you're going to be an entrepreneur, there's a lot of swan-like action has to kind of occur to make sure you don't sink.
You can picture the little like feet paddling underneath, you can't.
That's it. You might look like, you know, but underneath there's, you know, there's turbulent water.
Yeah, so, no, that makes sense.
And I think that's where it is important to kind of, you know, try and work out where you can get that break, where you can, you know, power yourself up a little bit, and you know, and that kind of sanity check around, you know, I am allowed to give myself a break. I am allowed to stop. I am allowed, you know, and I'm rubbish at it. So I'm terrible at it, and I'm trying to get better.
Do you find you're better at advising other people to take breaks than yourself? Yeah. But I guess that's also where having a good team behind you comes in as well, doesn't it? Where you can, you know, you can delegate some of these things and kind of almost have them encourage you to take a step back from some things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, with GEC and my wing woman, as I call her, my right hand woman, Jem, like she's there as a kind of sounding board. She does all the bits that like I've got no idea how to do with, and we do really badly. So she does all of that side for me. But you know, we're in communication all the time. You know, WhatsApp and voicemails. My goodness, I couldn't live without voicemails. And that kind of to and fro is also what you need. And I think you come from, I mean, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur, as a founder. Like I find it mad, or a CEO, which you know, you yourself
exactly.
A few of you, which is quite cool. But it's, you do need someone to run your ideas with. And also I think you've got to kind of really understand where your strengths and weaknesses are pretty quickly. You can't do everything, I don't think.
No.
And so you're better off thinking about how other people might do the job better than you, like what you can bring in. And our team, all of our team are juggling different contracts and work. So we subcontract. They've all got families. So we tend to work to the school term times, which suits us because we're in education. But, you know, we try to do that. So I mean, you'll remember, like as a teacher, you work really hard for 6 weeks, then you sort of catch your breath and then you go back in again. And that's kind of how we work, but that suits us all. And, you know, minimize, you know, we try to put boundaries in with communication, etc., to try and respect one another.
Especially during those times of something.
That's it. And I, you know, so I do feel like the values that we advocate for, we do have as an organisation. And we do recruit looking through that lens of, you know, underserved minority groups. So as I say, you know, we you know, we've got working parents, we've got incredible people in the team, like Omatola, who's just joined us, is our head of tech support. She also does role modeling and mentoring for girls who code as well. So, you know, we try to, you know, make sure that we're representing and being really faithful. We're trying to do as an organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that business model links in with your culture as well. What has your experience been like of working in the tech industry? Because obviously, you know, with the GEC, you've got your platform. So you are, you know, you're in that space as well. What's that been like as well?
Really interesting. I think like, so, you know, I've come from education. I haven't come from working in, you know, business industry. And also I've come from a digital art lens, I suppose, as well. And I think what's been really interesting is seeing how you can be sold to by other companies that want to work with you. I think bringing in people to do things like coding and dev work, and kind of understanding how you need a knowledge, not all the knowledge, but an understanding of that. I think I feel stronger and more confident now in voicing what I think about things, even if I'm not the expert in the room. And I think what's also been kind of interesting is seeing really what you can do with not a lot as well. So for example, like we use Canva for all our marketing, and actually our team that works with us for the win, they do all, you know, that, and that's with not just for us, with our organisation in education, that's, you know, cross sector. We use Google Workspace, we use tools like Trello, I use quite a lot of assistive technology because I'm sort of in that game as well, to help with things like Otter, transcribing meetings, transcribing webinars I don't have time to attend to, things like that. And so actually there's a lot of tech out there that supports me working in tech. But I think because I've always been quite confident having a play, I don't mind giving it a go. And I think, you know, also understanding where tech can't help. So I'm using quite a lot of AI at the moment, different kinds of AI, with in terms of the data we're collecting, but also in terms of just, you know, managing, working in a company and creating emails and things like that. But I think there's a lot of shortcuts that can be used that can help you. You don't always have to pay, you know, you learn where you put the money, basically. Kind of ROI you get back. But yeah, I think it's quite an exciting time. But also I think like I think the tech industry there's a lot of issues at the moment, particularly around AI content, like you know, what's ethical, where the guidelines are, where actually it's better not to use AI, for example, etc. So yeah, we're definitely in an interesting time of running a tech company in a tech world.
Yeah, definitely. I attended some interesting sessions as part of One Tech World around AI and its uses, and there was a really good panel where they were talking about things around, you know, ethics and how, you know, businesses can be using it ethically and responsibly, you know, how it can help them, but also how they like govern it as well and make sure that everyone's kind of responsible. And it was really interesting.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see it, you know, like the public services are starting to use it, and the government have got you know, the plan for change of rolling out AI across the board. And if you look at countries like I was listening to a podcast recently, and the rest is politics, about Taiwan, and they've got a new digital lead. First time I had a digital lead, transgender as well, interestingly, and looking at how AI can support social change and reform was really interesting. You know,
it's interesting.
You know, looking at AI teachers out in remote parts of the area which have been, you know, underfunded, looking at data for scale across public services, and, you know, within education, you're starting to see how lesson planning, marking, you know, how AI can be used for those kinds of things. And actually the school officers are using them, which may be more than, you know, like more traditional organisation like, you know, for example, where there's a skepticism and you know, traditionally having PAs and, you know, that kind of thing, that
that's true,
the digital assistant. So I think it'll be interesting to see as it gathers speed where it's going to come from. My hunch is like the public services, and then you know, large corporates, where those small and medium businesses might be a little bit slower to respond.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think you're right on that one. And especially as, like you say, we're already seeing examples of public services kind of putting it to use already and talking about ways to spread it further. What are some of your favourite aspects of your role? So we talked about, obviously, there's a lot of challenges, but what are the bits that you enjoy?
I think it's probably back to the bits that I've mentioned before, like creating content. I really enjoy. I really like, although because I spend quite a lot of time here in this room, is getting out and meeting people. Like, you know, when we meet at big conferences like BET at the Excel, for example. I really enjoy seeing what other people are coming up with and designing. Where they are at as well. There's some really exciting edtech organisations out there that are creating incredible solutions for young people. Things like translation tools like Streamer, for example, where teachers can speak in real time, and, you know, that goes out to every student, whatever, you know, multiple language learner they are, and then they can speak back and it comes back. Like there's incredible things out there as well that I think are going to change the face of education and how we meet the needs of our, you know, most underserved students. So I really enjoy being in the place that I am, learning from others, you know, out and about, but also, you know, the people that I meet with my organisation, the GEC and our GEC circle, and seeing what incredible other founders and entrepreneurs and companies and charities are doing as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. And what about your achievements? What have been some of your favourite achievements today that you want to highlight?
Yikes. I think one of, I suppose, I've been very fortunate that people are quite nice to me, and so get nominated for things, which is really
good. It's like you're trying to be modest about some things now.
So I got nominated and won the Inspiring 50, which is top 50 women in tech, a few years ago, and part of that was going up to London to like the House of Lords, and having been part of the garden party there, which was just incredible. So I do get to go to awards party. As you know, I always nominate others as well, Kat. But so that's been a real highlight. I think other highlight I've had was when we built the student survey and working with 50 student councils and the young people, and then recently one of our trusts have said that, they had Ofsted, the inspectors, and they did very, very well, outstandingly well with that. But they said, not because of the platform and the work we do, not only had it helped inclusion, word had got around the community, and they were actually oversubscribed for the first time because because of the kind of work that we've helped with them and that sort of data support model. And I kind of fell face down on a carpet for a few days following that. And I suppose this year, the third thing, that like the shiny kind of thing would be, I got to be on the arena at Bet this year, which had been
congrats.
So that was one of my things that I'd always kind of wanted to do. And so and I got there, so I was very excited. I was very nervous. Sitting with Lord Jim Knight and incredible people, but I'm very privileged in the doors that other people open for me. I suppose that's probably one of the last things. So I think as many doors as people can open for you as a founder. So if you are already a success, or you've got that privilege and you can help others, particularly underserved people do it, and then
definitely,
and vice versa. If someone will open a door for you, just get in there, just say yes, jump in and just see what happens, because a lot of the things that I've had happen are just by other people and their connections, really, that have kind of led to the opportunity. So
that's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. It's a win-win. I like that. And what would be your advice if someone was interested in starting their own company?
Don't do it.
That'd be such a good soundbite. What would be your advice? Don't do it.
Don't do it. I never thought I would set up a company, and I kind of accidentally did do it, and I'm learning all the time. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to make mistakes. I think it's okay not to always see what's coming. I think it's a wild ride, and so if you want to, just do it, just go for it. But I think look after yourself in the process is what I would probably say.
Yeah, definitely needed. All right, so my last question is, what change do you want to see in the tech industry, and how do we get there?
I think one of the biggest things that I would like to see, and it's kind of started off where I started to look at direct doctoral stuff, and you and I started talking as well, is I would like to see more of a confidence from those who don't think that they're techie. So I think if I had like a wish list, I would like to see more underserved, minority background people as teachers teaching a range of technology. That's what I would like to see, because I think part of the problem is we've got a lot of teachers who are female, who might be doing something techie, but will say, I'm not very techie. And I'm sure I get a lot of adults who are females who say they're not very techie, and I don't know what that means. If they're using tech all the time, that means you're techie. The other thing I would like to see change would be a leaning into media literacy in senses. So an understanding of the creation, but also the global citizenship and the online social media law. I'd like that to change. I'd like more tech companies to understand things like the ICO, digital rights of a child. I would like safeguarding to be put into platforms that our young people are using, and I'd like more ethical guidelines put in. And then I think the last thing I'd like to see around tech is kind of an equity piece and that access. So like accessibility being built in, more of a showcasing for those organisations that are trying to do that, or more chances for that to happen. Still too many websites and services, just, you know,
it's not accessible.
So I think I'd like the tech industry to change, to open its doors to more underserved people and really build in that sense of belonging, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even from doing that, a lot of those other aspects will change as well, because the more perspectives and the more different backgrounds and experiences that we've got, the more likely it is for tech to, become more accessible and kind of just more beneficial for everyone.
And that's it. And I think like meeting more founders who have had an idea because they've experienced some sort of pain, some sort of injustice, they will come up with a solution based on that. So it's kind of solution to what they've had. And so therefore you find the underserved founders of organizations have a solution, which is to help more equitable futures. But if they can't get that funding, if they don't get that door opened, those solutions don't happen, which means a problem continues. And so that's kind of that flip, that's where I think that, you know, grants for people like myself 5 years ago, you know, grants now is, you know, you're scaling up and things like that. Investors, VCs, companies opening doors, so, you know, that human connection first to ensure that development can happen, I suppose.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Nic. It's been absolutely lovely to have you on today.
You are so welcome anytime.